Nkechi's entire world collapsed in the 3 seconds it took her eyes to process what she was seeing. Her bedroom. 2:47 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. Her husband Damilola, shirtless, pressing their 19-year-old housekeeper Chiamaka onto their marital bed. Chiamaka's yellow uniform torn at the shoulder, her face contorted in terror, tears streaming down her cheeks as she pushed weakly against his chest. "Please, sir. Please stop. I beg you." Nkechi's scream shattered the air like broken glass. Damilola jerked backward, his eyes wild with the panic of a trapped animal. Chiamaka scrambled off the bed, clutching the torn fabric to her chest, her entire body convulsing with sobs. "Nkechi, baby, wait. This isn't what you think." Damilola's voice cracked with desperation. But Nkechi had already seen everything. And in that moment, she made a decision that would destroy everything they'd built and give Chiamaka the justice she deserved. Before we continue, let me ask you something quietly. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your part of the world? Some of us are hearing this story under the hot afternoon sun. Some in the calm of the night, when thoughts are heavy and hearts are open. Different places, one story, one lesson. If stories like this speak to your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your like helps this story reach another soul. Your comment tells me you understand the lesson. And when you share, you may be saving someone from the same mistake. Now let us continue. Nkechi Adewale had always considered herself fortunate. At 34, she had everything she'd worked for. A senior marketing position at a telecommunications company in Abuja, a beautiful 4-bedroom home in Maitama, and an 8-year marriage to Damilola, her university sweetheart. Their 7-year-old daughter, Tiniola, was bright and healthy. From the outside, they were the model Nigerian family. Damilola ran a small car dealership and was, though his business had struggled in recent years. Nkechi tried not to notice how his pride seemed to shrink each time her salary increased, each time she paid for holidays or school fees without asking him. She told herself it didn't matter who earned more. Marriage was partnership. 6 months ago they'd hired Chiamaka Okonkwo, a slender girl from a small village in Enugu State. At 19, Chiamaka was quiet, hardworking, and desperately grateful for the job. She sent most of her salary home to support her widowed mother and 3 younger siblings. She kept the house spotless, helped with Tiniola's homework, and never complained. Nkechi noticed how Chiamaka had begun to change in recent weeks. The girl who once sang while cleaning now moved through the house like a ghost. Her smiles became forced. She avoided eye contact, especially with Damilola. "Chiamaka seems unhappy lately," Nkechi mentioned to Damilola one evening. He barely looked up from his phone. "Village girls are always moody. Probably missing her family." Nkechi also noticed other things she tried to ignore. Damilola had started coming home during the day, unusual for someone who claimed his business demanded constant attention. He'd become short-tempered, snapping at her for minor things. His affection cooled. "You're always at work," he'd complained just last week. "Tiniola barely sees you." "I barely see you. I'm providing for our family," she'd replied, exhausted from a 14-hour day. "With your big salary, right? We all know who's the man in this marriage now." The words had stung, but she'd swallowed her hurt. Marriage required patience, she told herself. That Tuesday morning, Nkechi left for work at 7, the same as always. She kissed Tiniola goodbye, reminded Damilola to drop their daughter at school, and drove to her office for what was supposed to be a full day of meetings. But at 2 p.m., her biggest client canceled their afternoon meeting. Instead of staying at the office, Nkechi decided to surprise her family. She'd pick up Tiniola early from school, maybe take everyone out for ice cream. She pulled into her driveway at 2:43 p.m. Damilola's car was parked outside. She smiled, thinking he was home to surprise her too. She had no idea what horror waited inside. 3 months earlier, Chiamaka had been folding laundry in the living room when Damilola first touched her. Madam Nkechi had just left for work. Tiniola was at school. Chiamaka was alone in the house with him, as she was most weekday mornings. His hand had brushed against her waist as he passed. "You're doing good work, Chiamaka. We're very pleased with you." She'd stepped away, unsure if the touch was accidental. "Thank you, sir." The next day he'd stood too close while she washed dishes. his breath on her neck. You're a beautiful girl, you know. Any man would be lucky. Her stomach had twisted with dread. Sir, please. Please what? His tone shifted, became harder. I'm just complimenting my worker. Unless you think I mean something else? You have a dirty mind. Shame had burned through her. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe she was being disrespectful. But the touches continued, became bolder. His hand on her shoulder. His fingers grazing her arm. Comments about her body always when they were alone. Sir, I'm not comfortable, she tried to say once. He turned cold instantly. Comfortable? Do you know how many girls would kill for this job? How much your family needs this money? Don't be ungrateful, Chiamaka. The threat was clear. Speak up and you're finished. Your siblings go back to the streets. Your mother's medication stops. Chiamaka tried to avoid being alone with him. She'd time her cleaning for when Madame Nkechi was home. She stayed in her small room as much as possible. But Damilola always found moments. Always pressed his advantage. She thought about telling Madame Nkechi. Practiced the words in her mirror at night. Your husband touches me. Your husband makes me uncomfortable. But fear paralyzed her. Who would believe a poor housekeeper over a successful businessman? What if Madame Nkechi blamed her instead? Called her a seducer, a homewrecker? 2 weeks ago, after Sunday service, Sister Mercy from church had pulled Chiamaka aside. My dear, you look so sad these days. Is everything all right with your Madame and Oga? Chiamaka had almost broken down. Almost confessed everything. But the words stuck in her throat. I'm fine, Ma. Just missing home. Sister Mercy had squeezed her hand. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. But Chiamaka never went back. That Tuesday morning, Damilola dropped Tiniola at school as usual. When he returned, Chiamaka was sweeping the living room. Her heart sank when she heard his car. Good morning, sir, she said quietly, not looking at him. Chiamaka. His voice was different today. Harder. Determined. Come to the bedroom. I need you to change the bedsheets. Sir, I changed them yesterday. Are you arguing with me? Her hands trembled. No, sir. She followed him to the master bedroom, every instinct screaming danger. But what choice did she have? If she refused, she'd be fired. Sent home in disgrace. When she entered the bedroom, he closed the door behind them. Sir, please. He grabbed her arm. You've been avoiding me. Playing hard to get. I'm tired of games. Sir, I don't want. Please let me go. But he was stronger. Angry. Entitled. He pushed her toward the bed. Everything that happened next became a blur of terror. His weight. Her screams muffled by his hand. Her uniform tearing. Her desperate attempts to push him away, to escape. And then a sound that changed everything. A woman's scream. Sharper than her own. Nkechi stood in the doorway. Her face frozen in absolute horror. Time stopped. Nkechi's briefcase hit the floor with a dull thud. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Her brain refused to process what her eyes were showing her. This is my bedroom. That is my husband. That is our housekeeper. This cannot be real. Get off her. The scream ripped from somewhere primal inside her. Damilola scrambled backward, nearly falling off the bed. Chiamaka broke free, stumbling to the corner of the room. She slid down the wall, sobbing so violently her whole body shook. Nkechi, listen to me, this isn't. Damilola grabbed his shirt from the floor, his hands shaking. What did you do? Nkechi's voice came out strangled raw. What did you do? She came onto me. Damilola's desperation was palpable. I swear, baby, she's been throwing herself at me for weeks. I kept refusing, but today she... Liar. Chiamaka's voice cut through the room like a blade. Still curled in the corner, she pointed a shaking finger at him. You've been forcing yourself on me for months. I told you to stop. I begged you. Nkechi looked at the girl. Really looked. Chiamaka's uniform was torn from neck to shoulder. Red marks were already forming on her upper arms, handprints. Her lips were swollen. Her eyes were those of a hunted animal. Then Nkechi looked at her husband. His guilt was written across every feature. The panic in his eyes. The way he couldn't hold her gaze. I saw you, Nkechi said quietly, her voice deadly calm now. I walked in and I saw you on top of her. I heard her begging you to stop. I saw everything." The weight of those words hit Damilola like a physical blow. His face went pale. "Nkechi, please, we can work this out. Think about Tiniola, think about our family. You destroyed our family." Nkechi's words were ice. "You did this. Not her. Not me. You." She moved toward Chiamaka, who flinched. "It's okay," Nkechi said softly, crouching beside her. "You're safe now. I believe you. Do you understand? I believe you." Chiamaka dissolved into fresh sobs, and something cracked in Nkechi's chest. This child, because that's what she was, really just a child far from home, had been suffering under her own roof while she worked late, attended meetings, chased promotions. "Don't touch her." Damilola's voice rose with panic. "Nkechi, think about what you're doing. If you make a big deal out of this, everyone will know. Our friends, our church, Tiniola's school. Is that what you want?" Nkechi stood slowly. When she looked at her husband, he actually took a step back. "What I want," she said, pulling out her phone, "is justice." She dialed her brother. "Colonel, I need you to come to the house immediately. Bring your lawyer badge." Her brother was a criminal defense attorney, but he'd know what to do. Then she made a second call. "Maitama Police Station? I need to report a sexual assault. The perpetrator is still at the scene. My address is—" "No." Damilola lunged for the phone, but Nkechi sidestepped him. "You can't do this. I'm your husband. You're a rapist," she said flatly. "And I'm the witness who's going to make sure you pay for what you did." In the distance, a siren began to wail. The police arrived within 20 minutes. 2 officers, a stern woman, Inspector Amina Bello, and a younger male officer, Corporal Chinedu Okoro. Inspector Bello took one look at Chiamaka's torn clothing and traumatized state, and immediately separated her from Damilola. While Corporal Okoro took Damilola's statement in the living room, Inspector Bello sat with Chiamaka and Nkechi in Tiniola's playroom. "Can you tell me what happened?" Inspector Bello's voice was gentle but professional. Chiamaka could barely speak through her tears. Nkechi held her hand, providing what little comfort she could. Oga has been touching me for months," Chiamaka stammered. "I tried to avoid him. I tried to say no. But today he pushed me on the bed. He was forcing himself on me when Madam came home." "And you witnessed this?" Inspector Bello turned to Nkechi. "Everything," Nkechi confirmed, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I walked into my bedroom and saw my husband attempting to rape our housekeeper. She was crying, pushing against him, begging him to stop. I heard her exact words. 'Please, sir, please stop, I beg you.' There is no question about what I saw." Inspector Bello nodded, making detailed notes. "We'll need to take her for medical examination. Document any injuries. And we'll need your formal statement at the station." "Whatever you need," Nkechi said. "I'm prepared to testify to everything I witnessed." In the living room, Damilola was spinning a different story to Corporal Okoro. "This is a misunderstanding, officer. My wife walked in at the wrong time. The girl and I were having a consensual moment. She's been flirting with me for weeks." "Then why was your wife screaming?" Corporal Okoro asked mildly. She got the wrong idea. Chiamaka seduced me, and my wife caught us." But when the officers compared stories, Chiamaka's terrified testimony, the physical evidence, and most damning of all, Nkechi's eyewitness account, Damilola's lies fell apart. "Sir, you're under arrest for sexual assault," Inspector Bello announced when they reconvened. "This is ridiculous," Damilola shouted. "You're going to take their word over mine? I'm a respected businessman." "I'm taking the word of an eyewitness," Inspector Bello corrected. "Your wife, who has no reason to lie against you unless what she says is true." As they handcuffed him, Damilola turned desperate eyes on Nkechi. "Please, don't do this. Think about what this will do to us." "I am thinking about what you did," Nkechi replied coldly. "Take him." By evening, both families had gathered at the police station. Nkechi's brother Kunal had arrived and was coordinating with a colleague who specialized in sexual assault cases. Chiamaka's aunt, Mrs. Ifeoma Obi, had traveled from Enugu, her face etched with worry and grief. Damilola's parents were a study in contrasts. His mother, Mrs. Folake Adiwale, arrived in full defensive mode. "This is madness," she declared loudly in the station. "Nkechi, have you lost your mind? Bringing police into a family matter." "Your son is a rapist, Mama," Nkechi said quietly. "I watched him assault a 19-year-old girl in our bedroom. Men make mistakes." Mrs. Folake's voice rose. "You think you're the first woman to catch her husband with the house help? You handle it at home. You don't destroy your marriage over some village girl." "That village girl has a name," Kunnel interjected. "And your son committed a crime. We can compensate her." Mrs. Folake turned to Mrs. Ifeoma. "How much do you want? We'll pay. Double her salary. Triple it. Just convince Nkechi to withdraw the case." Mrs. Ifeoma's face hardened. "You think my niece's dignity has a price?" "Everything has a price," Mrs. Folake snapped. "Don't be foolish. Take the money and everyone goes home happy. Except for Chiamaka, who was violated." Nkechi's voice cut like steel. "Except for the next young girl your son decides to force himself on because he faced no consequences." "No, Mama. This ends here." Damilola's father, Chief Adebayo Adewale, had been silent throughout the exchange. A retired university professor, he'd built his reputation on integrity and moral rectitude. Now he stood, his face aged a decade in a single day. "Folake, be quiet," he said wearily. "Adebayo, you can't possibly." "I said be quiet." His voice cracked like a whip. He turned to Nkechi and Chiamaka. "I apologize. From the bottom of my heart, I apologize for what my son has done. There is no excuse. No justification." He looked at his son through the bars of the holding cell. "You've brought shame on this family. On everything I taught you. I won't protect you from the consequences of your actions." Mrs. Folake gasped. "You're abandoning your own son?" "I'm holding him accountable," Chief Adebayo replied. "As every parent should." 3 days later, Damilola was formally charged and remanded in police custody pending trial. Nkechi filed for divorce the same week. There would be no reconciliation, no second chances, no forgiveness. The man she'd married no longer existed, if he ever had. 4 months later, the courtroom was packed for the final day of the trial. Chiamaka sat beside Mrs. Ifeoma, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She'd testified twice during the trial, reliving her trauma in excruciating detail. Each time, Nkechi had been in the courtroom, offering silent support. The prosecution's case was devastating. Medical evidence documented injuries consistent with attempted sexual assault. Text messages from Chiamaka to her mother weeks before the incident referenced problems with Oga that she was afraid to discuss. Character witnesses testified to her gentle, withdrawn nature. But the most powerful testimony came from Nkechi herself. "I walked into my bedroom at approximately 2:47 p.m., she testified, her voice clear and unwavering. "I saw my husband, the defendant, on top of our housekeeper. She was crying. Her uniform was torn. She was pushing against him and saying, 'Please, sir, please stop, I beg you.' There was no consent. There was only violence and fear. I know what I saw." Damilola's lawyer had tried to discredit her. "Isn't it true you were angry at your husband? That your marriage was struggling?" "My marriage was struggling because my husband was a predator," Nkechi replied. "But I didn't know that until I saw what he was doing to Chiamaka. I wish I had known sooner. I might have saved her months of suffering." The defense had no answer for an eyewitness wife willing to testify against her own husband. The judge, Justice Ngozi Okeke, delivered the verdict with stern gravity. The court finds the defendant guilty of attempted rape and sexual assault. The testimony of the victim, corroborated by physical evidence and eyewitness account, leaves no reasonable doubt. Damilola received a 6-year prison sentence. In the gallery, Mrs. Folake sobbed loudly. Chief Adebayo sat in stony silence, his face a mask of grief and shame. Nkechi closed her eyes, feeling no triumph, only a deep, aching exhaustion. Justice she was learning didn't heal. It just ensured the guilty carried their weight. 1 year later, Nkechi stood in her kitchen, preparing breakfast for Tiniola before school. The house felt different now, smaller, quieter, but also safer. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. She'd kept the house, full custody of Damilola, and her dignity. The story had spread through their social circle like wildfire. Some friends had stood by her, praising her courage. Others had whispered that she'd been too harsh, that she should have handled it quietly. She'd learned to ignore the whispers. Chiamaka had returned to Enugu shortly after the trial. Nkechi had given her a substantial settlement, not as compensation for what happened, because nothing could compensate for that, but as a foundation to rebuild. Last Nkechi heard, Chiamaka had opened a small tailoring shop in her village. But Nkechi knew the girls still suffered. Mrs. Ifeoma had mentioned nightmares, difficulty trusting people, panic attacks. Some wounds never fully healed. Nkechi herself had started therapy. The betrayal had cut deeper than she'd initially realized. She'd loved Damilola, or the man she thought he was. Discovering the monster beneath had shattered something fundamental in her understanding of the world. But she was rebuilding. Slowly. Chief Adebayo maintained a relationship with Damilola, visiting every other weekend. He'd apologized countless times for his son's actions. Mrs. Folake, bitter and unrepentant, had cut off all contact, still insisting that Nkechi had destroyed the family. Damilola sat in Kirikiri maximum security prison. His business had collapsed. His friends had abandoned him. In his rare letters to his father, which Chief Adebayo shared with Nkechi, he blamed everyone. Blamed Chiamaka for tempting him. Blamed Nkechi for overreacting. Blamed the justice system for being too harsh. He'd never once written, "I'm sorry. What I did was wrong." Some people, Nkechi had learned, never truly face what they've done. "Mummy, is Daddy ever coming back?" Damilola asked one morning, her small face serious. Nkechi knelt beside her daughter. "No, sweetheart. Daddy did something very wrong. He hurt someone who couldn't protect themselves. And when you hurt people like that, there are consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "The kind that don't go away," Nkechi said gently. "The kind that last your whole life. That's why we must always choose to be kind. To protect people who need protecting. To stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Like you did for Chiamaka?" Nkechi's eyes filled with tears. "Like I did for Chiamaka." She hugged her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her coconut oil moisturized hair, feeling the steady beat of her innocent heart. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they would walk it together, survivors both of them, of a man who'd chosen violence over love, entitlement over empathy. Some actions shattered lives beyond repair. Some losses could never be restored. But justice, true justice, wasn't about restoration. It was about ensuring the guilty carried the full weight of what they'd done. It was about protecting the vulnerable. It was about teaching the next generation that actions had consequences, that cruelty would not be rewarded, that silence in the face of evil was itself a kind of evil. Nkechi had lost her marriage. Chiamaka had lost her innocence. Damilola had lost his freedom. But one thing remained unbroken: the truth. And sometimes, in a world that often protected predators over victims, the truth was the most powerful justice of all. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Comment your thoughts on the betrayal, and tell me where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below.